Roxie Beckles, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. So, let's see. So, I been following you for a while,
Really?
and
Okay.
following you following you for a few reasons.
Okay. I'm scared now. I'm scared now.
Well, I'm a fitness person, and so that's part of the reason. And another reason is a lot of the stuff that you say, as it relates to dating.
Okay.
So you take some you take some it you take some positions that are not necessarily common positions. I think that it used to be common sense. I frequently say that this whole common sense thing, some of us are like, man, that's just common sense.
Mm-hmm.
We have to realize that good sense is not necessarily common anymore.
Right.
So, you say a lot of stuff that's good sense, that used to be common sense, but for whatever reason, we've gotten quite a bit away from that, which is too bad.
Right. I agree.
And you actually encourage people to do stuff like, I don't know, maybe listen at least a little bit to maybe some of the things that Kevin Samuels is saying.
Mm-hmm.
Just a few of them, maybe not everything, but and that alone is worthy of a lot of controversy these days.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting because I don't really like to classify my stuff as like dating per se, but it falls into the same genre, right? Especially because, I mean, what I really talk about is self-improvement, self-accountability, and fitness. I mean, that's pretty much it. And I spin it with a little bit more of an angle towards women, where we talk about the feminine energy and just really learning how to balance that. And so it's interesting because in today's culture, even outside of let's say, quote unquote, Black YouTube, these conversations are also happening. I think that women are at a point right now where it's like, we're at critical mass, right? Because so much of our society is so liberal in thinking and extremely progressive that just having ideals about gender roles or just what defines femininity is like a huge thing. It's like, oh my gosh, you're telling women to be women. That's not allowed, So it's interesting because I think that, and I talked about that, I did a little a candid snippet earlier today while I was just lying in repose on my bed for 5 minutes of rest in the middle of the day. I was saying how it's important, I think, for women particularly, and for men too, because you guys are getting it from some women too, this crazy chatter, that you have to really learn how to filter a lot of what you hear, because some of it may apply and some of it actually might be when you hear it, you're like, oh wait, that's something that I do, or that's a behavior that I need to fix. But also at the same time, hearing the same rhetoric over and over and over again can also have some negative impact, so it's interesting. So to round it all off, yes, you're right. My stuff does fall into that kind of catch-all into the dating space, although I'm more about self-improvement. And yes, I don't have a problem agreeing with some of what Kevin says. I mean, I don't exalt everything, but he has, like you said, it was common sense at one point, So yeah.
Yeah. So I was looking on your Instagram, and you had a post not too long ago where, so you're Catholic.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so it seems that maybe you recently made a transition from Catholic to super Catholic.
Yeah, I guess that's a good classification of it, right? I'm a trad cat all of a sudden. I'm like, it's like, what's going on here?
So can you talk a little bit? I think you know the post I'm talking about, but
yeah, I know exactly. Yeah, the veil.
Yeah. Right. So
I have one with a rosary bead as well. If you saw that bar down. Yeah. So I was born and raised Catholic, actually. So I'm what you would consider, I'm what's called a cradle Catholic. That's all I've known since I was born. And I went to Catholic schools my whole life. Like even college was like Catholic school. I went to Fordham University, which is a Jesuit school, which is Catholic. But there were points in my life because I do have family members who are Pentecostal and they're part of like Black churches and stuff. So I kind of have this interesting spiritual history behind me where I've experienced both, and my faith has always been central in my life. That's just how I was raised and that's just what I know. But I think that in the last like maybe 2 years or so, I really just started to explore my faith in a deeper way. Right. And at first I was actually going to West Angeles church. Anyone in LA or anyone who's a part of the Church of God in Christ knows the West Angeles Cathedral, Bishop Blake there and stuff. And it felt good, but it just wasn't what I understood. So I came back to the Catholic Church, came back to the faith again. And, this time around, I really spent a lot of time studying Christianity and the history behind it. There's a lot of controversy behind Christianity. There's a lot, listen, the Israelites out there, they love to come to my channel and tell me how I'm not a Catholic and I'm Black and I can't do this. And I'm like, guys, chill, I'm cool, But anyway, I digress. I just really started like learning the dogma that was taught to me as a kid and just really learning in a different way through the eyes of an adult, but as a woman. There's so much about femininity and like divine femininity and true authentic femininity that is in scripture. Whether you are Muslim, whether you are Jewish, whether you are Christian or whatever, it's there in our books. And when I really started to explore that part of myself, it helped me to go deeper with that transition, that tapping into what I call your empowered womanhood in a deeper way, in a more meaningful way. So yeah, I mean, I'm super Catholic. I'm not like a crazy trad, but I do pray in Latin. I go to Latin Mass. I'm gonna actually this Sunday going to a crazy huge Latin Mass and stuff like that. So it is what it is, I suppose. I don't push my beliefs on anyone, but I really feel that it's helped me just improve as a woman overall.
Yeah, that's it's good to hear that,
Yeah.
So you talk about femininity a lot, but you were a pro bodybuilder. Now, I don't have any problem putting those things together, but they don't necessarily seem like maybe they go together. Can you talk maybe a little bit about that?
Sure thing. It's an interesting dichotomy when people meet female bodybuilders or female competitors in general. And there's a classification of bodybuilders. You have the tiniest ones from the bikini division that look like swimsuit models, all the way up to the big giant girls who are the actual female bodybuilders, the stereotypical, very masculine looking kind of woman because of the amount of muscle she has. And, a lot of it's steroids for some of those women, many of those women. But just because a woman may choose to do that extreme with her body and train and stuff like that, it doesn't mean that it lessens her femininity from who she is as a person per se. Like, I know some bodybuilders who are some of the girliest women you will ever meet. There's a woman, her name is Margie. Margie is a great friend of mine. She's an upcoming, she's going to be Miss Olympia one day. She's on that path. And she is a female bodybuilder. And when you go to her Instagram, it's like, oh my God, the girl is like, she's yoked and everything. But when you meet her in person.
Thank you so much for watching my video so far. If you'd like to support, there are several ways to do so below. Also, likes are free. Please comment, share, and subscribe. Now back to the video.
When you meet her in person, she is the most she's so amazing. I love her. She's a dear friend of mine. And so it's the outer appearance that you juxtapose that against somebody's personality. It's like, whoa, it's like, what's going on here? And that's kind of what it was for me too. It's like, I enjoyed the sport because I enjoyed pushing myself physically. And I had that competitive streak within me. I was a dancer my whole life. All I know how to do is go to auditions and just compete for things, you know what I mean? So this was perfect. It's like, oh, it's fitness and I get to be on stage and perform and compete. Sign me up, But it never changed who I was as a person. It was just the outer appearance. So there is in the gym, anyone who ever saw me getting ready for a show in the gym, oh, that's where my masculine energy used to come out. Then I'd be falls to the wall, but outside of that, I was just the same old Roxie I've always been, so that's the misconception that a lot of people have about women who compete, or just women in general who tend to just be more athletic and have very muscular frames and stuff. It's like you look at the body and the face for so many, and it's like, oh, that's really hard. But when you get to know the heart, it could actually be very different than the outer appearance.
All right.
Yeah.
And okay, so I was so on the fitness thing. So all right. So I this is a topic that I have thought about quite a bit.
Okay.
And it's this idea about food deserts.
Mm.
And I saw you did a stream on that topic. You read an article and discussed it. I said some stuff in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this idea that especially in inner cities, that there's all of these food deserts. They're all over the place. It makes it so that people can't get adequate nutrition. And, I mean, we basically know that that's not really true.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really the case. But it's something that is kept alive. It's such a regular talking point, amongst progressives. So what sort of led you to do that stream on that article?
Well, a lot of the things that I do, my more serious broadcasts and streams and stuff like that, have a base for inspiration. And I believe the base for the inspiration for that particular stream was that video of the woman who was talking about, oh, it's food deserts and Trump and all these things are making Black women fat. And I was like, that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life, right? So it just went into this foray. Okay, let's break each one of these down. Let's break down point by point what she said and look at the data. What does the data say? Now, when I go into research, I go in, I try to let go of my biases. Of course, this is crazy. Let me look this up, but I could be proven wrong, right? And when I looked into the data, it was like, oh, wait, well, no, the food desert thing isn't really a thing, right? So it comes once again down to personal responsibility at the end of the day. So, for me, inspiration for talking about these points is always based off of what somebody said, and I want to go ahead and either prove it or disprove it. So that's where that kind of came out of. And just to go on to what you picked on a little bit earlier, yes, these things are often touted as reasons why we are seeing the prevalent numbers of obesity, particularly, with the Black community, particularly with Black women. And it's just, to me, it comes down to that victimhood mentality that a lot of people have today. It's like, oh, you know, I'm this way because so-and-so and this and that. It's like, it becomes this echo chamber. And it's like, in so many ways, I think sometimes people are looking for ways to validate why they can't get out of situations that they can get out of, but for whatever reasons, they're stuck. They don't want to invest in the help, or they don't want to do the work, or maybe they don't know where to begin at all. So I think, again, it's like we're looking at things that become a crutch, a blame, an excuse for mediocrity. And you know that doesn't fly on our channel over on MySpace. So
right. You know, the food desert thing, you know, when you look at the research, even if, okay, so if you say, okay, maybe there are some food deserts. Mm-hmm. But the thing is that if there are food deserts, there would be more likely to be in rural areas,
right,
than in the inner city. Right. And also, you know, we have cell phones. Mm-hmm. And if the argument is that, well, people just don't know what to eat, or they just haven't gotten the right education, you mm-hmm. know, it's not their fault that, you know, they grew up, you know, in a situation where they, you know, didn't see people eating healthy foods and like this. Okay, you know, you can't control where you come from.
Right.
You can't control who your parents were or who the people that were around you when you're little. But when you get older, you can decide to go somewhere else, and you can decide to, instead of, you know, liking cat videos or something, you can.
Hey, what's wrong with cat videos?
Or I don't know, pick something trivial. Instead of that, do some research on maybe what foods that are relatively inexpensive, that, you know, that you can find anywhere. Mm-hmm. And I pointed out in your stream that canned tuna is available everywhere, and so are eggs.
Right.
Now, that would be a really, really boring diet. Okay? But that would be a lot healthier than going right for the honey bun.
Right, exactly. Okay? And you lose a lot of weight too, so.
That's right. You know, it's, I don't know. Honestly, it's frustrating, mm-hmm. the kind of stuff that people say and think that that's supposed to actually be an excuse. I think in one of the videos that you're mentioning, the overweight woman, and she's talking about, you know, that the diets don't work the same for Black people.
Oh yeah, that was crazy.
I was like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Come on, really? And right. You know, if you say something emphatically enough, with enough intensity and seemingly sincerity, people will believe you.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know, and it's like, goodness.
Yeah.
Rather than spreading that kind of stuff, mm-hmm. why not admit that maybe you had something to do with why you're 300 some pounds? Okay?
Right.
And then do something about it. Or if you yourself can't do something about it, at least don't spread misinformation so other folks, you know, are misled in the same way that you obviously were.
Well, I mean, there's a certain kind of pathology that goes into someone when they are dealing with obesity. And I started to talk about that a bit this week on my channel, because it's not so much an easy black or white answer as go on a diet, exercise, and you're going to lose weight. I mean, a lot of times when you're dealing with someone who, I mean, obesity is a medical condition. And when you get to the point where as your BMI is over 35, it's kind of like you're dealing with a number of underlying things. A lot of times it is hormonal. There is usually, if someone is that big, there is usually an issue that's going on with their thyroid. Guaranteed. There's some type of hypothyroidism or something that is going on. There could also be some adrenal issues that starts going on. You know that insulin becomes a problem as well within the body. So the body starts to physiologically break down after a while. Add to that any kind of mental trauma and stuff. And I know sometimes people turn their nose up at that, but these people who get to that size are often masking their emotions and treating their feelings and treating things with food. So there is, to a great degree, like emotional overeating and binge eating going on. So it is a multi-leveled problem. It's very nuanced, is what I keep saying about it. And I've worked with women who were obese, and we've slowly started taking their weight down. I have a woman right now, she's on a 100-pound journey. We've got like 19 pounds more to go or so, 19, 20 more pounds to go so far. I have another woman I just started working with. She wants to lose 100 pounds. And so it's just, it's when they hear someone like myself come along who can speak about the matter, more importantly, speak about it respectfully, they know that they can feel safe in getting the help. And that's another thing. A lot of times folks who are overweight do feel like they've been ridiculed their whole life. That's what they know. So they're expecting people to ridicule them. When they go into the gym, one of the biggest fears for both men and women is that people are staring at them, laughing at them, and making fun of them for coming in there. It isn't true, but that's the perception that they have to learn how to get over. So there's a lot of things that go into obesity that isn't necessarily, it sounds like it's excuses to the untrained ear, but when you work with someone, you see the psychological connection that's a part of the problem, of the disease. And I think that a lot of times when you do hear those excuses, they know that there's something wrong. They know they don't feel good about it, but it's easier to deflect it than to face it head on for a lot of people. And the only time they're going to be able to face it or change it is when they're ready. You can only present the information to someone, but they have to take action because they have the impetus to change. So. Right.
It seems to me that losing that amount of weight and especially keeping it off, that's got to be maybe the hardest thing to do. Mm-hmm. And I know I've got a couple friends, and actually my sister-in-law, that dropped a bunch of weight and are, staying the course and doing what they're supposed to do. And that's much respect to anyone that's able to accomplish that.
Yeah.
Statistically, almost nobody can do it.
Right. This is the thing. That's why it's important for those who have a lot of weight to lose, a significant amount of weight. And I think that when you have a goal of losing anything over 20 pounds, that becomes pretty significant, that it requires a great amount of discipline. And what I always say is you have to be willing to and ready to change your actions, your habits, and your patterns and behaviors. Actions, habits, patterns, behaviors. You have to really go that deep. And then you have to really get connected with that deep reason, like, why does this matter to me, right? And you also have to accept that permanent weight loss is a slow process. It's not a quick process. A lot of times folks want to see that 20, 30 pounds go off in a week. It's like, honey, it didn't take you a week to put on that weight. It's not going to take a week to get it off, And so, it's hard because the diet industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and it's not around to help you to get a result. It preys on your naivete. It preys and it will attack your complete deer in the headlights innocence and not knowing what the hell to do. It's hoping that you never find out, right? Otherwise, somebody's not getting rich. So when you take the process slowly, deliberately, changing all your actions, habits, behaviors, and patterns, that is when you get the results, and that is when you keep it off for the long term.
I interviewed Jessica X and also Chantel Simone. And we talked about a particular topic, and I thought it might be interesting to ask you about this. Well, I'm sure this is the case.
Okay.
You have to get a lot of trolling. Like folks have to troll you all the time. You have to be getting strange emails and everything else, because women that have positions like you do these days, one of the ways that they're referred to as being pick-me's. Now, frankly, matter of fact, when I interviewed Jessica, that was the first question I asked her. I said, okay, "Are you a pick-me?" And that was the icebreaker. And now the thing is that I think in some ways that pick-me term has sort of been turned around. And so folks that have been called that, they're like, you know what? There's actually nothing wrong with doing the things that would make you get picked. I don't understand what the challenge is. Mm-hmm. So first, the thing about the trolling, and then do you consider yourself to be a pick-me?
Well, it's interesting because the trolling, mostly like any kind of like offhanded comments, usually are exclusively on my YouTube comments, because it's almost impossible to actually directly contact with me without paying me. So you can't just email me unless I give you my email address. It's interesting. So yeah, I don't get, like, most folks can't contact me unless they're putting down money. So that's a good thing. My inbox stays business only, at least for now. I bet you they'll try to find it and then just email me crazy questions. But anyway, am I a pick-me? Like, I was thinking about that term the other day, and I was just like, well, that just doesn't make sense, because the goalpost is always moving as far as what a pick-me is. And I mean, people, if you want to call me a pick-me, then fine. I don't care. I've been called worse. Listen, I used to be a dancer. I used to be a model. Like, I used to be an actress. I've been called everything under the sun. Okay. Like, to my face, this, that, the other, you're fat, you're this, you're that. I mean, look, I'm fat, right? Like, you need to lose 20 pounds because you're not 98 pounds. Listen, you can't tell me anything that I just feel like makes me want to cry. I'd be like, whatever, But like, no, I don't think I'm a pick-me. If someone wants to call me that, then fine. I mean, that's your business, but who cares? When you point three fingers, you point a finger, three pointing back at you always. And I think that rhetoric comes from a lot of women who have had bitter experiences with men, and stuff like that. And I mean, I don't have a perfect, like, oh, every guy I've dated is perfect kind of thing. But I mean, it just really doesn't bother me to the point where I have any kind of bitterness and when I have a man in my life who deserves to be treated well, that I don't know how to treat him well, or don't want to. So if that makes me a pick-me, then all right, well, I guess so. Call me queen of the pick-me's, because I like to be the best at everything.
That's great. So I think that term, part of what that comes out of is, I think there's like there's the sisterhood, and it's like, by having a particular perspective, like saying like, okay, well, I'm going to be submissive and I'm going to be cooperative and I'm going to, cook, and I'm going to, saying some of those kind of things, I think to some women is like, it's almost like being a traitor. It's like, now you're saying stuff. Look, don't you know that we've advanced? We don't have to do those things anymore. It's almost like that kind of thing, which is, it's too bad. To me, it seems like at the heart of the feminist thing, at least first wave feminism, was for women to have a choice. Not to be forced to do the new thing, but rather, if you don't want to have to do the old thing, you can do something else. But for women that find value in, being more traditional, look, it's what's the problem? We're not messing with you. We're not, messing with what you're doing. We just want to be able to do this. So it's a little bit of sour grapes or something. I don't know.
Well, I mean, we're in a point where in society, like you said, I mean, we're so far gone down the rabbit hole of extremes that there is really no balance. It's like, a lot of women, particularly women who are if you were born like anytime, if your parents are boomers, let's just start there. If your parents are boomers, so that could be like everybody from X down, everybody from X, I mean, not even X. Is it Generation X? Yeah, Generation X down. Like we were all brought up with that mentality. Every single X, millennials, zennials, what are the ones now? The Zs and the poor baby little alphas now. The consensus is that as a woman, you turn 18, you go to college, you focus on school, you get your career, and don't worry, all that other stuff can wait. Have fun, just go, don't worry about it. I was talking to a client of mine the other day, actually, and, we were talking about dating because her daughter, she's 25, and she just started dating, out there and stuff like that. And and these are, what's funny about it is that this woman that I'm talking about, I mean, these are even people of like, wealth and they got some money, these folks, right? She's so liberal. She's like, if you really like a guy, you sleep with him on the first date. I was like, what are you telling your daughter? Like, are you insane, lady? Like, come on. Because when she met her husband, they slept together on the first date back in 19, whatever the hell year is, like 70 something or 80 something. I was like, you can't do that today. Are you insane? But that's what is okay and it's acceptable today. It's like, if you're not kissing and tonguing down someone that you just met, you swiped yesterday, you meet tomorrow, and you're supposed to be, licking each other up. It's like, it's a weird world we live in. There's no space for traditional values. There's no space for courting. There's no space for getting to know each other. And what's acceptable is hypersexuality, fast, gratification, physical gratification, and all of those things. So that's the culture we're in. Now, feminism was supposed to give women the choice. But the unfortunate thing is that once the cat was out of the bag, it went and ran, like we don't even know where the cat is anymore. Cat's like a panther somewhere in a jungle. Okay. It's gone. It's out. And it's just, that is where we are. That is the culture today. And I think that what's happening is now that a lot of women, are seeing that, wait a minute, like everything you told us was a lie. I'm in several groups because I'm nosy and I just like to get material for what I need to talk about on my channel. I'm in several Facebook groups of different women, different various races and stuff like that. A lot of the women who tend to be in these dating groups are like dating relationship groups, femininity groups and stuff. A lot of these women tend to be 40s, 30s, 40s, 50s. It doesn't matter if they're black, white, yellow, green, whatever. They're all struggling with the same thing. It's like the dating market is hard. Guys aren't taking them seriously. They waited too long to do what they wanted to do with their lives. And now they're trying to scramble to figure it out. Women are waking up. And, listen, I am where I am in my life. I'm not married yet, so I drank the Kool-Aid to a great degree as well. I mean, that was something that was instilled in me anyway, as a young dancer. It's like, if you gave up your dance career to get married and have children, you were not a serious artist. You're a waste of talent. You're like, it was such a thing that was like instilled in us. Like, you don't do that. You dedicate your life and everything to the art. Crazy, I know, but when you want to be a professional dancer, you want to dance on the stages of New York and, London, Paris, wherever, you do what you have to do, right? So a lot of women are waking up like, holy crap, we were lied to. And I think it's important for women such as myself as well to be another message to a younger generation of women. That goes back to my Christian values. Titus 2 women, she was instructed to teach the younger generation, right? So it's like, I feel like it is my duty to say, hey, look, ladies, you're in your 20s and that's fantastic. You just turned 18, great. Have your fun if you want to, do what you want. But honey, you better think about this, because when I was 20 years old, I didn't think I wanted to get married. I didn't. I was like, ruin this body? Are you kidding? It's so perfect. No. But like, think differently, because when you get older, you might start changing your mind. And depending on where you are, what mistakes you made, how you look, and a bunch of other factors, you might price yourself out of the market. So you got to think about it, so that's my rambling diatribe. I hope that answered your question.
I think that's going to get clipped, by the way.
Oh no.
That was great. No, that was great.
Oh, okay. Oh, you mean clipped as featured somewhere?
Well, the thing is, I appreciate your willingness to look at yourself and say, you know what, I kind of drank the Kool-Aid also, and, X, Y, and Z. I appreciate that, because that's not usual. I can't tell you a time. I don't know that I've ever heard a woman be that honest, about that. Mm-hmm. So that's good on you to be willing to say that.
Well, it goes back to the self-accountability thing that I'm always talking about. And the only thing I've ever known for myself, as long as I've been on social media, and I mean, I've had my channel for a long time, from the time I started competing. Like, I turned on the camera. Actually, I had a channel before that where I was documenting my acting and my dancing and stuff. And then when I found out some kids were watching me from, I was dancing at Alvin at the time, and I found out some of the kids, they were 14, 15 years old. They're like, we watch your YouTube videos. I was mortified. So I took the channel down. I was like, oh my God, this is so weird. But so I've been on social media for a long time. And for me, I mean, I feel like I like to teach by example. It's like, look, this is what I'm going through, and this is how I overcame something, or this is how I achieved something, and this is how you may be able to do it too, right? So I think that self-accountability and being able to reflect on what you've done right and what you've done wrong is important. And when you understand both of those things, then you can recalibrate and do what you need to do to actually achieve the goals that you want. So, I mean, I much appreciate people that you can relate to, that you can learn from and say that, wow, okay, this person has done this and I'm not alone in that, And I think there's so much rhetoric online. There's so much rhetoric in the space right now that's very much about always talking about what women have done wrong, how they're so horrible, and there's no chance. You hit the wall over if you're 21, if you're 18, you're 15, you hit the wall, okay? It's too late, kid, it's too late. It's like, so you start feeling like, oh my God, my life is over, whereas it doesn't have to be, right? So again, it comes down to that self-accountability and hearing, okay, I hear this rhetoric, what applies to me, what doesn't, how do I move forward towards what I really want, how to actually achieve it and get it, so.
Yeah, in my experience, men are pretty forgiving. And
men's hearts melt with a beautiful smile. So it's like, you can probably take the most red pill dude that's like, I'm never going to marry anybody. And then he's like, all of a sudden he's booed up. He's got a wife and a kid. Didn't that happen to, what is his name? Alan Roger Curry, Mode 1. He's got a wife and a kid. It's like, what's going on here? It's like, so yeah.
I mean, if that the femininity thing, that is some strong stuff. And unfortunately, it gets this rap as being weak, and it's like, dude, you don't understand what's going on. Okay. So first of all, so I'm gonna rewind just a little bit here.
Well, actually, let me before you do that, let me touch on the weak femininity thing, and I think that women who, if you looked at, let's say, film actresses from like the classic era, 1950s and stuff like that, 40s, 50s and stuff. That's like, I love old Hollywood. That's why I kind of have that aesthetic myself. It's kind of like my thing. I've studied women. I've studied these women across the gamut, and it's interesting because like when you do these character studies on these women and the characters that they played and how they were really able to tap into their sensuality without being like overexposing in the way that we are today. But then when you sit and you watch interviews of these specific women, they're so intelligent, like if you ever watch, like for instance, every one person everybody knows is Marilyn Monroe, right? She was portrayed as the biggest bimbo on the planet, but the woman was extremely smart. She was extremely well-read, and she was very headstrong, and she was very kind of feminist in her day, not to the extreme that we are today, but just very forward. She was the first woman in Hollywood to own her own production company. She actually took on Fox Studios and sued them and like got her contracts and won. It was crazy. A dummy can't do that, right? And if you look at other actresses of that time, they were just as ruthless and cunning in that way. So the idea that being, stupid or dumb, maybe that's like the mask. That's like the femininity superpower. It's like, yeah, you think I'm so stupid, but honey, I can get your heart in my hands and just like make you melt down to nothing just with a smile and the pat of an eye, so that's the superpower. We know what we're doing.
Yeah, it is. I have to say, my biggest challenges, and this would be with probably with most guys, money and women. Those have been the biggest challenges, and in my case, it's been women. And I've made some, bad choices. Fortunately, I finally got it right. And speaking of my wife, she's a dancer.
Oh, okay.
She has her own dance company.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and she loves Alvin Ailey. Now, did I hear that correctly? Did I hear you say that you danced with?
I didn't
Alvin
dance
Ailey?
with the company. I was at the school. So I actually have a BFA in dance through Fordham University in Alvin Ailey. I was a part of their BFA program there. And they do have like a studio company within the BFA program that I did dance with. So I performed within that studio company in different various venues and stuff like that, representing the program. So, but I've danced. I mean, my dance resume is actually pretty crazy because I was a New York kid. So like, I started training at the Joffrey Ballet School. I was on scholarship at Dance Theater Harlem. I, did the Alvin Ailey, American Ballet Theater, their curriculum program, classes there and stuff like that. So I got a crazy dance resume. It's like, I was a serious dancer. I was in ballet class today, actually. I still dance because it keeps me in shape and I love it. So, but as far as pursuing a career in it anymore, I'm like, I'm too old for that. Legs don't go where they quite used to. They're kind of heavy now from all the bodybuilding. So I am good, honey. I'm good.
Yeah. You were talking about how sort of hypersexualized everything is now, and all of the sort of swapping of bodily fluids, which is totally gross.
So gross.
But but that's what the ball game is now. And I if I was not married, it's like I cashed out just in time.
Yeah.
Because if I was not married now, it's very low likelihood that I would get married. Because of what I see. And you try to, and even back before I met my wife, in, doing some dating, the expectation that the women have, it's like the women are trying to get you in the sack. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is like, is that what it is now? And it's an issue for a lot of women. If you're like, you know what, I just want to, let's, pump the brakes, let me, what is your name again?
Right. Okay.
It's almost like that's an issue. And I'm like, I don't get that. Well, I get it. I understand why that it is. But it's just not the way.
Right.
Kevin Samuels, in his show on Monday. So that was, a couple days ago, Monday. He's asking a question to women. What is it that you can give to a man that you've never given to any other man? Mm-hmm. Oh, goodness gracious. That is a tough question. Oh, man. And, he had four callers, and so one of them, had a kid, wasn't married when she had the kid. And she agreed with the sentiment. And so she wasn't like belligerent or anything, but it's like it's like what you were talking about, the 18-year-old girl, the 20-year-old girl. It's like, have your fun, but you do have to realize that at some point, all of the fun is going to come back.
Right.
And it might not be, it might not be what you want. Because if you want a guy of a certain caliber, I'm not talking about Pookie and Ray Ray. If you want a guy of a certain caliber, he might kind of want a certain thing. He might kind of expect that you had, not, given it to everybody.
Right.
Right. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And and that's another thing that I try to talk about as well, with particularly I have a growing number of women between the ages of 18 and 30. When I look at my YouTube channel, my demographics, and 25 to 30 seems to be the biggest growing demographic. And one thing that I can say is that, like, growing up, I was always like I was a late bloomer because I was just very sheltered, like princessy girl. Like, I didn't have a boyfriend. Until I was like 21. It was like, because I didn't date, I didn't do any of that stuff. I was just like, the only thing I cared about was ballet class. That's it. Ballet and band practice. That was it. And then when I got to college, it was just about ballet. That was it, So, like, what it allowed me is to not be ran through, basically speaking. Just to be quite honest, it allowed me to not be completely ran through. And even after that, like, I've always really valued my body. So just being like sexual with just anyone was just a big deal. It's like, no, right? And like, so I really think that it's important. I mean, it's hard to say to young people nowadays to abstain from sex. It's kind of hard to say, it's really better for you to be a virgin when you get married, if that's your choice and whatnot. It's hard because the kids are growing up with so much messaging from the time they're like young to the time that they're able to go out and actually experiment. Everybody's doing something nowadays in high school and all that stuff, So if anything, it's like especially for young women, it's like, look, I mean, if you are going to make the choice to have sex, be responsible, don't do it with just everyone. It should only happen in the context of a relationship with someone you actually really love. And for God's sake, please wrap it up, please. Like, there's no reason for you to get pregnant. Here's an interesting factoid. I have never in my life been on birth control. I've also never been accidentally pregnant, and I've never had an abortion. I am 100% against abortion. I am 100% pro-life. So there is a certain, so when I hear people like, like, how did you get pregnant? You don't know, like, you don't know when you're ovulating, like, you don't know when you're like, come on. And some women don't, they really don't.
Yeah, it's science. I was watching.
Like, come on, let's not play Russian roulette in the bedroom. That's not the place that you want to do that, honey. Okay. But I think that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was watching CGA and Coach Greg Adams.
Okay, I was like, who's CGA?
Yeah.
Okay. He's funny. Oh my God.
He is funny.
After the peace league.
Right.
It makes me think about that the fleshlight when he says that. I'm like, oh my God, that's like the fleshlight. But okay, go ahead. So,
anyhow, left turn. Okay, let's go back.
Right. Sorry.
So, he was doing a show and he was talking about. This might have been last week. It might have been Friday last week. Because his show typically is on. It's usually on when I'm in the gym.
Okay.
Because I drop my son off, and if I've done an interview, then I'll come back to the house and I'll upload the video, and then I go to the gym at that point. And then he's on the West Coast, but I think he comes on at like 6:45, 6:50 Pacific Standard Time.
Oh, yeah,
so it's around, so anyhow, I started watching his show when I was in the gym, and I had been watching him before anyway. It's an entertaining show. But one thing he was talking about is the fact that a woman's cycle is a matter of science. Mm-hmm. And so the idea that a woman that will accidentally get pregnant, he thinks it's total hogwash. He thinks that there's more manipulation involved with that. So you only basically have like a 5-day window when you actually can get pregnant. And so all you have to know is get a calendar out and then mark that 5-day period of time. Okay, this is no-go zone. Mm-hmm. And then that, significantly reduces, if not almost totally reduces even the possibility of getting pregnant. Let alone the 20-some birth control, products that there are for women. Come on, there's no reason to get pregnant. Marry before you carry.
That's 100% what I think. It's like, I don't believe in having children outside of wedlock, just because it's just not the ideal situation to raise a child and to create a legacy, and I think that's true for both men and women. Like, when I was out there dating, it's like, I just didn't date guys who had children. Especially if they had more than one child. Oh my God, with more than one woman, it's kind of like really irresponsible to me. It's like that becomes a question for women too. It's like, well, you've already had children with somebody else and then you didn't marry them. So what's going to make you say that you're going to marry me, or that you even want to have more children? So that's like, it's an interesting thing when you're on that side of the coin and you can have that conversation with someone because you haven't done that. But I digress. The thing about women's ovulation does get a little murky because, some women do have irregular cycles where it's like one cycle you may be 25 days and then the next cycle you're 30 days. And that really changes when you might ovulate, but that's why it's even more important for women who have that kind of irregularity, why they should know their bodies even more. Because at the end of the day, it becomes a matter of your future. And I just don't understand how, if you're not married to somebody, why you would let anyone, sometimes I guess throes of passion, you might have unprotected sex or whatever. But to think that you let them just shoot up the club, come on, now that's dumb. Okay. That's really stupid. It's really crazy. And I listen, I am, children are not made alone. We do not plop out because of what is that called when they do that asexual reproduction? Okay, I can't break off my finger like a starfish and then it comes up as new. Oh, person. Right. It's like, listen, Mister, why'd you shoot up the club, man? Come on, y'all got to do something better than this. I don't know. I listen, out of wedlock children, it's like, that's outside of my mode of genius. I don't even know how to even address that because I ain't never been down that road before. So
Well, I mean,
I really
in
think
our
that people
community,
should be more responsible, to be honest.
yeah, in our community these days, what is it, 75%
Yeah,
are born out of wedlock. And
absolutely.
so that's the norm.
Right.
And there's, there seems to be this thing too, and I experienced this a lot especially when I was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up in a kind of a rural kind of school district. And so my family was kind of one of the only black families. There might have been like two or three black families for the entire school district. And so I got to being a senior in high school, and I kind of got tired of that. And so I transferred to Lansing Everett. And that's the school that Magic Johnson went to, actually.
Okay.
And so the demographic was more like 40 or 45% black students in that school. And I remember frequently, I'd go over to a young lady, hey, what's happening, and I experienced quite a few nuclear rejections.
Oh.
Look at your shoes.
Oh,
you
no.
know, look at your pants. You actually think you can talk to me? I'm telling you, it's even back then. That was the way that I would get treated, and because there is this, it seems like in the black community, there's this prioritization of swag over substance.
Right.
So if the cat can talk a good game, and if he's got X, Y, and Z, he's got the shoes on, he's got the right gold chain, whatever it is, then that surpasses, any actual, objective qualities, anything that actually means something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think of some of the women that, some of these girls that, that I experienced these rejections from, and I consider where they likely are now and how things worked out for me, and it seems that maybe that wasn't the best situation. And I mean, I have dated out before. My wife is black, but I've dated out before. But the reason I dated out was not because it wasn't because I was anti-black woman. The reason that I dated out was because the black woman that I really wanted, she chose a Pookie and a Ray Ray, instead of me. And I was like, dude, what am I supposed to do here? And, you kind of date who you're around. Right. And that's, so that stuff happens. But, it wasn't because I didn't have I transferred to a high school so that there would be more black girls.
Right.
That was a primary reason why I wanted to transfer. Mm-hmm. And, but then I still ended up dating a white girl. I was like, come on, man.
It's like, oh man, that didn't work. That mission failed. Yeah. I mean, I went to an all girls private school. So like we wore uniforms every day. So I don't even know like that experience. And even the guys, like a lot of the girls would end up meeting would be some of the guys from the all boys schools, so it's like, it was just kind of the thing. Like they tried to, like, if we had school dances and stuff, it was like with the boys school, like, I don't know, Regis or like, Bishop, whatever the heck school, Rice, one of those schools. But like, but it goes beyond high school, of course, because this happens in the adult world all the time. I mean, we are living in a culture that's all about conspicuous consumption. Everything is just about, flash money, this, that, the other, especially nowadays, right? Everything's about swag and that, yeah. So people are just missing out on a lot of experiences. And what's interesting is that when you actually date guys like that, they're like jerks. They're the biggest jerks in the world. Oh my God. And they're annoying. Are you kidding? So it's like, and that's how women get themselves in trouble. They date these guys, swagalicious, I'll tell you what, if you looked at the history of the kind of guys that I used to date, my best friend used to be looking at me like, what is wrong with you? Like, why won't you go with the gorgeous guy over there? Like, I just did not like dating gorgeous men. Like, they creeped me out, first of all, because first of all, I knew a lot of them. I was models, as dancers. Like, I see gorgeous men all the time. So I know that they're dorks and I know how some of them are. So it just completely turned me off, So when I see women fawning over some guy with like washboard abs, and I'm like, oh, that guy's just whatever, who cares, It's just, it comes down to the way that a woman is. And, female nature is always going to go for what she thinks in her mind will be that quote unquote provider. Now, how that manifests from woman to woman is a different thing, and a guy showing off his wealth, if he has any, or any money he has, dressing with the clothes, the swag, it's that peacocking to show, yeah, I'm the big guy that has the provision, whether he has it or not is another thing, right? Okay. But Some women are attracted to that, I think partly because of female nature, period. And then the other part is that they don't understand that shiny objects aren't really always the best thing to go for, particularly when you don't even meet the level or the standard of the shiny object. And we know that is an entirely different conversation. So. Yeah. But I don't know. It's just, I read a book. It's what when I have daughters, I have like a list of books that they will be required to read. And one of the books that I'm going to require my daughters to read is a book called Marry Him: The Case for Settling for Mr. Good Enough. And everyone hates the word settle, but I always say that you're not settling if you don't even have the options. If the options aren't there, you're not settling. Settling would be having a plethora of options, and they're amazing options. And instead of choosing one of those fantastic options, you would with something lesser for whatever reasons. That's settling, right? And what the book really talks about is how women often chase the shiny objects. They don't look at a man's character. They don't look at what it is that he can really bring to the relationship in a positive way that's for the long term. And so many women need to read that book today. It's like required reading, So yeah, I mean, again, we're back again to culture. Talking about culture was talking about the change in social awareness and how we move through the world. And unfortunately, we have a lot of lost people. The marriage rates are declining for the middle class and for the lower class, but they're pretty steady in the upper classes. They're not wasting their time with not getting married, not having children, but the middle classes and lower classes are. There is something amiss, and if people don't wake up, God knows where our society is going to be. So,
yeah. So, this interview that we're doing now is going to air tomorrow.
Really?
I'm going to do it in a premiere video.
Okay.
It'll be at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
7 a.m. my time. Okay.
Okay. In the evening, I'm going to be doing a show on my live stream show called Thunder's Thoughts.
Okay.
With Dr. Doug, who's my frequent collaborator on that show. Mm-hmm. And that show is called Is There a Solution for the Deregulated Dating Market? And it's going to be a video breakdown of an interview between JLP, Jesse Lee Peterson, and PGA. And Coach Greg Adams, which
I met Jesse Lee Peterson, and I didn't know he was Jesse Lee Peterson. He used to go to my gym. We were both at Equinox here in LA, and this is like a mythical gym. It's crazy because everybody goes there. Like Magic Johnson goes there. Magic is really nice. Byron's like my gym buddy. Mel Gibson is my other gym buddy. like Hilary Swank goes there. Here's another kicker. Nicole Murphy goes there, and so does Layla Rashawn goes there. Crazy. It's like this mythical gym in the middle of LA. I love it. I just love being in the mix of the drama. But go ahead. And Jesse Lee Peterson, like I said, I have talked to him several times just before I even knew who he was. I was like, oh, hi, and they said, oh, he's a reverend. I was like, oh yeah, okay, Reverend, Mr. Reverend, Peterson, So when I see him now, I'm like, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. But go ahead.
Yeah, Jesse has and he does this in this interview that we're going to do a breakdown on. Uh-huh. He has this approach of asking, his interviewing approach is, he really listens, he really pays attention, and he can fool you into thinking that he doesn't know what he's talking about, or like he's like low information or something. Until he starts digging in and start asking you the same question over and over, because you're hamstering instead of actually saying, the actual answer. And he does that a couple times to CGA in the interview, which is interesting. But they both diagnose the problem the same, but the solution for the problem that they both sort of are implying is different. And of course, in my mind, the spiritual answer is going to be the better answer than sort of just, okay, well, if this is what the market is, then I'm going to figure out how to maximize my satisfaction while staying standoffish and non-committal.
I know who said that one.
Right.
I don't even have to guess who said that one.
Now what's interesting is both CGA and JLP are single. They're both single. But one of them is So one of the strange things about CGA to me is that, because he believes he's a traditionalist. His entire philosophy is totally a response to the problem that he sees in the dating market.
And his divorce, his experience with the divorce of the kids and all that.
That's right. So that's basically where all of that comes from. But at heart, he's a traditionalist. So he actually thinks that two-parent homes, that's the way to go. If you're going to have kids, then you need to struggle and stay together. He's all about that. But as far as young people making that decision, he's against that, because he doesn't see any reason to believe that something is going to change. And if you look at the statistics, it's not really a good bet. It's kind of a lousy bet. In a way, I agree with that. But now you're Catholic, I'm Orthodox, and
you're Orthodox what?
Eastern Orthodox.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Right. So my church is OCA, Orthodox Church of America, but it's all the same church.
Yeah.
And I was married in a Greek church.
Wow.
And so
your wife is Orthodox as well?
No, she's not.
Okay.
She's not. She's Baptist. Yeah, kind of Baptist, sort of Baptist evangelical, kind of in that kind of space. But I was going to say, I'm not cradle Orthodox. It was something that I chose later, because I grew up in kind of Pentecostal kind of churches, and charismatic, Word of Faith. I had right before my conversion, I had an experience with some prosperity Yeah, I was working for a church, and the guy was him and his wife were, they were all into that and kind of taking advantage of folks and stuff. That was kind of that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for me. I was like, okay, there's got to be something different than this. Besides the fact that I would ask all these questions, even growing up, just about continuity in history and stuff. It was like, okay, so why are we supposed to do X, Y, and Z? Well, the Bible says that. Okay, that's good. I'm a fan of the Bible, but why? Like, why is the Bible definitive? Like, why? And where did the Bible come from, by the way? Like, what? I would start asking those kind of questions, and it was almost like my questioning was treated as almost like I was being defiant, or I was just, being flippant or something. But no, I wasn't being any of those things. I just didn't understand. I just didn't know,
right?
Why you have this value in the book. Now, I have value in the book. I think that the book is valuable, but now the reason that I understand, the reason that I believe the Bible is because of the church. The church came before the Bible. And, people that will make people's heads blow up.
Right.
So
they don't know history. That's why.
That's right. So, and actually, what is it? The New Testament canon of Scripture that was not ratified until 325.
Right.
AD, right. So for 300 years, there was no New Testament canon of Scripture, and the only reason that they felt necessary to have a canon of Scripture was because the Gnostics and other heretical groups were forging documents claiming that they were penned by one of the apostles or something.
Right, exactly.
Right, and they said, well, when in doubt, throw it out.
Right.
And so so there's other books that are still reverenced, like the Epistle of Barnabas, for instance. They're so highly reverenced, but they just didn't make it into the canon because they were trying to be safe to make sure that the documents they got in there.
Yeah, I actually have all of those books because in the Catholic Bible, we have what the Protestants call the Apocrypha. We call the Deuterocanonical texts in our Bible, and those are the books that were taken out of the King James Bible. But again, when you understand history, and we talked about that a little bit earlier when I talked about how my faith in Catholicism deepened. Catholicism has a lot of bad rap because of the scandals and because of everything that's gone on within the church. And I understand, I acknowledge that, but that's not my sin, you know what I mean? But like going back and understanding Scripture and the historical context of it all, I think that everyone who calls himself a Christian, no matter what your denomination, you need to look at all of the books, you know what I mean? Even the ones that were taken out. So I actually really started reading those even further removed books and stuff like that, what they call the lost books of the Bible, quote to quote. And I just feel like it just gives you that deeper meaning. And that's what society is missing. Like you said, it's that spiritual link that governs how we act and how we are with each other, how we value relationships, whether it's marriage, because there was no dating in the Bible, or,
That's
family
facts.
And all that stuff. So
that is facts. They don't dating in the Bible. A lot of arranged marriages. I know cats ain't gonna like that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, it's possible for you to arrange. Like, if you think of it, like you can possibly arrange your own marriage today, but it would go back to you actually courting, right? So that means that let's say like a modern day person could do that in today's world, like using the technology available. You would have to really specifically set up your profile, like no boobies out, no butt pics, girls, you know what I mean? Like you have to clean that up. What you put in your profile is going to attract certain men to you. And then like in the process of slowing down and getting to know each other, instead of trying to jump on a coffee date from an app, like sit down, have conversations, video chat, talk for a little bit before you decide if you really want to go out. Because I mean, at the end of the day, the guy is going to be, if he's traditional, he's going to be taking you out, and you're not going to pull out your wallet because he's just simply not going to let you. You have to, as a woman, ethically say, you know, when you meet this man, especially if the feeling isn't there and you're not liking him, thank him for the time. Tell him, hey, you know, I'm not feeling what I need to feel, but you know, you're really great, but this isn't going to work for me, and whatever, you know, be respectful. Don't go on 10,000 dates with the guy and lead him on. And it's just, you got to get back to tradition. And that's the thing that people don't want to do. You know, talk on the phone before you meet. What is that? Let's just go on a coffee date. You know, it's like, what? You know, I didn't do coffee dates. Listen, you ain't taking me on no damn coffee date. I drink coffee every day. Okay. You talk to me and we get to know each other. And if you think that I'm worthy of a date, then, you know, I'd rather you take the time to decide that. But that's it.
You know, something that's interesting is something that Kevin Samuels is an advocate for. So one of the things that he says is that you don't need any more than 6 months to know if you're going to marry somebody and to actually be married within 6 months. If you meet the person, if it's the right person, if you're marriage minded, if you're courting instead of dating, wasting time, and if you're asking specific pointed questions right from the beginning, you know, that will weed people out that are not serious. You know, but it seems that part of the female dating strategy is to, not all women, but a lot of modern women, a lot of their strategy is to, okay, we'll date for a while, and then, you know, we get to know each other, and then we start to become attached, and then, okay, now I say I love you, and like this. Okay, now you're a couple years down the road, and what happens is, because of that usual connection that happens when you're physical with somebody and over a long period of time, then it's like you start to ignore all of these huge red flags, all of this stuff that was going on the whole time. Right. So rather than doing that and wasting years, and frankly, women do not have as many years to work with to get that stuff right. So rather than wasting a bunch of time, hey, let's right from the beginning, let's get this worked out. Now, you know, you were talking about the Apocrypha. So, and sometimes referred to as deuterocanonical. So that's referring to the Old Testament. Of course, the New Testament is the you know, Protestants and Catholics and Orthodox, we all agree on what those books are in the New Testament. But what's interesting is in the Old Testament, the book that Apostle Paul references, he's referencing the Septuagint.
Yeah.
So he's referencing.
I was actually reading about the Septuagint today, actually. So it's funny that you mentioned this.
Yeah. Go ahead. He's talking about the Septuagint. So when he says all scripture is profitable for teaching, and like when he says all scripture, he's talking about the Septuagint. Now the Septuagint was a Greek translation of the Hebrew. And the Jews believed that it was a miracle, a minor miracle, that King Ptolemy, he had hired 70 scholars, linguists, to translate the Hebrew to Greek. And there was nothing different in any of the translations, which is like an amazing, you know, feat. And so they adopted that. So what happened was, after the beginning of sort of Christianity, there was a council called Council of Jamnia. And this council was a Jewish council where Jews decided to revert back to the Hebrew And part of the reason was because the early Christian liturgy was nothing but a Christianization of the Jewish liturgy. And then since the language was in common, and since it was Greek, right? So the language was in common, so it made it a little bit too easy for people to just sort of convert. And so they said, you know what, we want some more distance, so we're going to go back to the Hebrew. Now, part of the reason that we know that actually happened that way is because in parts of Africa, where they didn't get the word to change back to the Hebrew, they still are using the Septuagint.
Right. That's in the Ethiopian sects of Christianity and stuff like that. Is that correct? Right. Yeah.
So it's very that whole thing is interesting. But those books that are in the Septuagint, that includes the books like Maccabees and Tobit, and
those are all in the Catholic Bible as well. Tobit, Maccabees, First and Second Maccabees, all those. Judith, Yeah.
So the Orthodox and the Catholics, although there's a couple books that are different in that collection, but basically our Old Testaments are the same.
Right. Well, yeah, it was interesting because I was reading about the Septuagint today because I was looking up something about the biblical history. That's how much of a dork I am, by the way. That's all right. And what I was reading was just going back to the origins of the Bible, how even within the Holy Roman Empire, let's talk about because afterwards, once Christianity was starting to become established, and it's Constantine had the Holy Roman Empire, Christianity become the official religion, then that's what the Catholic Church came up out of, right? So going back, looking at how we got to the text, and I was reading about what I was looking at was how do I get into my reading of this started because of the fact that I was talking to someone who was a Mormon. Oh my gosh, that I have been obsessed with the craziness of Mormonism this entire weekend. It's insane. But I went back to look something up.
Not too long ago, we couldn't be Mormon, by the way.
Tell me about it. And this person was trying to get me to be a Mormon. I was like, but Black people couldn't even be a Mormon since until 1970 something. They literally said that if you had dark skin, you were cursed. Oh yes, sign me up for that. And there's a woman, her name, I keep forgetting her name, Jane. She has a weird name. It's several Jane James Mathis or something like that. She was the first Black person in Mormonism, and she was a servant. And they wouldn't let her officially join the church. And she has a speech where she said that I'm as white, she's darker than me. I'm as white as any of you. The only difference is the color of my skin. I was like, yeah, sign me up for that, okay? So crazy. Anyway, so I was looking up the Septuagint and just looking at the structure of the Bible. People want to question, how the validity of it. And it's even when you look at what the Catholic Church did with the Catholic Church wasn't really the Catholic Church, what they did with the early Catholic Church, later Christianity. When I say that, I mean 300, around the Council of Nicaea and stuff like that. Well, Saint Jerome, he took what was translated, because what they did was they translated it to Greek, and then he went and translated it to Latin, because like I told you, I'm actually starting to transition to going to the official Latin Mass with the Tridentine Mass, which is the original Mass that was held for 400 years in the Catholic Church until they decided to change that in the 1960s. So I pray in Latin, stuff like that as well. And the official vernacular of that time, because the Roman Empire was so huge, was Latin. But what he did was he went and they first did one translation of it based off of the Greek, but because they found so many inconsistencies within the Greek, they went back to the Septuagint. They went back to the Hebrew text, And then he went back and like redid the translations from Hebrew to Latin, and that was another reason for me why, I had stopped actually reading the King James Bible, just because of the fact that things were taken out and this, that, and it's just, the whole thing with the Anglican Church. And I'm just like, okay, that's just, you don't get to just change the Bible. Okay. You just don't. Okay. Like we don't do that here. So when I started to read and understand the history behind the Bible, it's just such a powerful thing, and it's beautiful when you think about it, because it really shows you how close we are to Judaism. And I also give huge acknowledgement to Islam. We are Abrahamic religions. We're based off of monotheism. Okay, we disagree on certain parts, on who's the Messiah and this, that, the other, but our tenets are still the same. It's still the same root, it's still the same Old Testament. And so, I don't know, it saddens me that people like us who are into this kind of thing, like we're the outsiders, like we're the weirdos. It's like, oh God, Roxie's the holy roller. She's going to start talking about Jesus again. It's like, here we go. We're the holy rollers, we're the weirdos, but it held society together. It held everybody to a certain standard. And because we are now more secular, and even I can even respect people who are spiritual but not religious, but they really follow a true base of something in it. They believe there's a higher power and they live their lives to be of the greater good. I can respect that, more so than people that just start just going that way.
That's spiritual, not religious. The problem with that is you don't actually know what that means.
Right. This is true.
That's kind of my pushback against.
Right. Well, for me, when I was dating, like that was an immediate left swipe. Like, no, spiritual but not religious. But I don't even know what that means. But okay. I'm just saying, I always leave room for everybody. When I'm just generally talking, I leave room for everybody. But on a one-on-one, it's like, you got kids, never married, bye. Spiritual, not religious, bye. See you later. Liberal, get out of here, bye.
You're saying all the stuff that's going to get you canceled.
Oh, who cares? I don't care. You can't cancel me or whatever. People are still going to hire me to work them out. So it doesn't matter.
Right. So
I am HR. This is the CEO. I am human resources. You want to go ahead and call and complain? Go ahead and call human resources. I'll pick up the phone.
So we didn't spend very much time talking about fitness stuff and you're a trainer.
I used to be. I'm not a trainer so much anymore. Like I left the world of personal training, like, oh my gosh, 11 years ago or so. But that's where I started, of course. But now I do more coaching is more what it is. So.
Okay. So how is the coaching different than personal training?
Well, I mean, I always feel that I have more of a hands-on thing with my clients. Like, whereas a lot of times you hire a personal trainer, you meet them at the gym, you work out with them. But once that training session is over, that's kind of the end of your connection and relationship to that person until you see them for the next session, right? Whereas with what I do, I don't need to count your reps. I don't need to follow you around the gym. I don't need to change your weights for you, but I'm going to give you the program that you will take to the gym, do by yourself. Usually I work with people who are more advanced and they know their way around. Here is your meal plan that you're going to follow. You actually have your nutrition, because training and nutrition must go hand in hand. And then there is the personal contact in between. Like for me, I talk to my clients all the time. We have one-on-one coaching calls to help them to change their mindset. We have group coaching calls. We have intensives that help them with personal development, femininity, and all this other stuff. So it's a lot more of a hands-on approach that's really geared for a more holistic approach to creating new actions, habits, behaviors, mindsets, and patterns. So.
Yeah, I don't have a problem going to the gym consistently. That's not been my issue.
Mm-hmm.
My issue is in the kitchen. And as I always tell folks, the kitchen is undefeated.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter how much training you do, if the diet isn't together, you can't overcome, bad bad eating by training more.
Right.
And that reminds me, I interviewed John Meadows.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
rest in peace.
he passed away. Yeah.
Yeah, and John actually he lived in Pickerington, where I live.
Oh wow. Okay.
I live in a suburb of Columbus, Ohio, called Pickerington, and so he actually went to the gym that I go to.
Oh wow.
And so I would frequently see him there. That's actually how I met him and asked him for an interview because I realized who he was. And
I used to follow his mountain dog training actually a couple of years ago, about 10 years ago.
But super nice dude, super good dude. But I said that in our interview. I told him that the kitchen is undefeated, and we had a nice conversation about that. But
yeah,
really influential guy, and I didn't realize how influential he was until. I mean, I knew he had a lot of subscribers and a lot of people were watching him, but as far as like actual people in the industry, so anyhow, that's sad, but he definitely made a mark. But,
yeah, I mean, he's one of those people. It's like, you've arrived when you're a trainer who trains trainers, And I've trained a lot of coaches and people, industry people, as far as competitors who were actual pros and big names and have their own followings and they're trainers themselves. That's how you've arrived. So with John Meadows, a couple of years ago when I was really getting into the bodybuilding scene and just really trying to absorb everything that I could to learn about all the things that I knew about training and nutrition, but in now that standpoint, how do you take a body to that elite level? And his mountain dog training was some of the first things that I really started to devour. It's just crazy. So to hear he had passed, it was just so sad and so shocking, and he was one of the guys that he used science, which back in the day with bodybuilding, that was weird. People didn't use science. It was all anecdote and crazy stuff. You know what I mean? And he used a lot of research and science in what he did. So he was a big influence in that way for years, so. He
was also one of the first guys to be very transparent about PEDs.
Oh yeah.
In our interview, we talked in depth about that. And again, his approach is science, not politics, not, not any of that other stuff.
Right.
It's all about science. And I remember we talked a little bit about Lyle Alzado, the football player that he got cancer and passed away from cancer, and the sort of common knowledge was that it was because he was abusing steroids, and there is no connection between steroids and the kind of cancer that he had at all. Absolutely zero. But that was the thing, and that was actually how the media kind of used that story.
Right. Yeah. When you said that, I'm like, oh, okay. It's how do you get cancer from steroids? It doesn't work like that. Okay.
yeah. But they used that story as another thing. Hey, you don't need to, don't mess around with this stuff, because now obviously you don't want kids doing this, and obviously, you can take too much. All of that stuff is true. But it's just a lot of misinformation.
Yeah.
But to John's credit, he was very transparent and actually followed the science.
Right. Yeah.
So, well, is there anything that you'd like to plug?
I am at a point in my own coaching and my own like trajectory as far as what I'm doing has evolved over the years. A lot of the stuff that I used to do was very much bodybuilding centered and contest prep, because that was the phase that I was in my life. And now I'm not doing that anymore. But I'm always trying to make sure that fitness is at the forefront of everything that I do. And even with the talk of femininity and self-improvement and all of that, I talk about the 4 pillars of fitness. And to me, within my umbrella, the Rockstar Fitness umbrella, that's your physical fitness, mental fitness, emotional fitness, and spiritual fitness, and how all 4 of those need to be cultivated and honed for you to just be the best woman that you can possibly be. So, for those who might be listening to this, who want to work with me, I do have introductory 20-minute clarity calls. We call them, and just kind of sit down and talk about, okay, what's bothering you right now? What's getting you stuck? Let's see if we can get a solution. And that kind of just opens up the whole world of possibilities to working further with me, whether that's in, just private coaching calls or monthly coaching or something like that. And I'm also going to be re-releasing and releasing my e-courses that I have on the back end for those who may not want coaching, but they want some help, maybe go at their own pace. So I have all of that actually available on my website. The best way to reach that is rockstarfitness.com. That's ROXSTAR fitness.com/work with Roxie. WORK with Roxie, ROXIE. Okay, that's where you can find out how to come and contact me if you want to work with me. But if you generally want to just see my website, see what I'm all about, get on my email list, rockstarfitness.com. That's ROXSTAR fitness.com/email list. That'll get you on my email list so you can stay connected and all that stuff. And whenever I release new articles, videos, and stuff like that, whether I'm having, client openings or new e-courses and programs, yada, yada, you'll be the first to know. So that's probably the best way to kind of get in contact with me and get your body changed and really take control of not only your body, but your entire life. And that's what's the most important.
That's great. I think about this. I think, I appreciate your willingness to say the things that you say. And I think it ultimately is going to take more women saying the things that you are saying to sort of, make the needle move at all. I think that there are a lot of guys saying this stuff, but not very many women. And I think Mumia Obsidian Ali called Jessica X Weapon X.
Okay.
And so we need more weapons like you to
thank you.
Continue to do the work and share the good news.
Thank you. Much appreciated. I'm not going anywhere, at least not yet. Not until I'm knocked up barefoot and pregnant. Then, okay, bye. See you guys later. I'm going to be homeschooling my children and being a trad wife.
All right. I could clip that too. That'd be great. Maybe that'll be a new button on my soundboard.
Right. Yeah, yes, please do. I'd love that. I'm trad wife.
All right. Well, God bless you. And
thank you so much.
I'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you so much. Oh, email me the link so I can watch it. I'd love to see this interview. I always cringe when I see myself, but I'd love to see it.
Oh, absolutely. I definitely will be doing that. And I would appreciate it if you would share it on your social media and everything. That'd be great. Put
Absolutely.
it on your community tab and all that good stuff. That's great. Beautiful. Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah. All right. Bye.